Hey, what's up, everyone? We are finally back. It's the Powercast, and this is episode 22. And we're going to be recapping Power Season 5, Episode 1. Yes, it's finally back, and we've been waiting a long time for this show to come back. And wow, what an episode number one that was. So, yeah, I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How you doing, Rich?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers? Very.
How you doing, Dana?
I'm doing well. Yay, power.
Yep. So that was a pretty good season premiere right there. So yeah, we're definitely gonna give some of our thoughts and feelings about the events that unfolded because a lot happened and seems like it's gonna really shape the season. So let's dive right into it. So yeah, when the show opened, we saw Angela, and she was kind of disturbed. She was at Ray Ray's crime scene because and she was a bit disturbed because she told Tasha about where Ray Ray was and that she thought that he was the one who killed Raina. And next thing she knows, Ray Ray ends up dead. So she's thinking that because she told Tasha, Tasha must have told Jamie, and that's then Raymond ends up dead basically, and that directly links her to the crime. Um, and later on, we actually see that there's an internal affairs agent who's doing some digging around the crime scene and trying to figure out what's going on too. And that kind of puts some pressure on Angela. And we also see that she actually confronts Tasha about it early on in the episode, and Tasha actually reveals that it was Tariq. And Angela says that the gun is linked to Tasha. So like all the investigation needs is to link the bullet from Raymond's crime scene to the record of her gun, and they're going to find out that it came from her. So Tasha asks her if she can delete that record, and then that kind of sets up a lot of what happens later. But what did you guys think of that opening and Angela's dilemma and her link to Ray Ray's murder? I'll go to you first, Rich.
Well, I think that Angela should have used some foresight that something might potentially happen when she had revealed that information to Tasha. Very that
the show kind of starts with her being a bit distressed at what happened.
It's the beginning of the end for Angela. It's wonderful. It's great. I love it. Here's what I think. I think that we all know that she's acting out of some type of guilt. Because if she was able to separate herself from the situation, then she would know, let me not get my feelings involved with this. But instead, she realized what she did because what she did was guttural. She had this gut feeling, and plus she was also dealing with a lot of guilt from her actions of the previous season, also going with Ghost. Now I would have normally would you just said, oh, this is nothing, she's just acting on emotions. But the reason why I say this is the beginning of the end is because we now have the internal affairs. And remember, for me, I felt like they spent a lot of time on Angela and a lot of the emotions and the feelings. Like for me, that scene was it was something that dealt a lot with when you just how can I explain it? It felt like it was not emotional as in like I'm crying and hysterical, but one of those, everything was driven by emotion scenes. And even with her being, disoriented and everything, I felt that this was her being unable to separate herself from her emotions and then her realizing what she did. And I felt that because of her actions, which we'll talk about later on in the episode as well, is going to further lead her down to her own demise, which is something that I would appreciate as opposed to somebody just taking her out. She's reached the point where it's good for her, this character, to just face her own demise. So I was very happy when I saw it. And I like the fact that they introduced the internal affairs investigator so that, this will play out and build up more. And to go really quickly with that witness, I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I have a very different opinion than what you guys have about the witness.
Awesome.
Wow, I mean, the show just came back and you're already predicting the death of my girl Angela. Like,
No, I never stated that she was going to die. I said this is better than her dying. I said that this is her own downfall. Because if we go and explain what happened and what she did throughout the episode, to me, it's leading up to her being incarcerated. And I think at the end of the day, she's not going to have anyone to rely on because of what she did. Yes, right now she seems to be buddy-buddy with Tasha, and we'll explain more about why. But for the moment, I feel that it's only temporary. When it comes to Tasha really standing for this woman or Ghost standing by this woman, they're going to choose their own family first over Angela.
Hey, I'd like to make a quick comment before you move on, Gary. One thing we know about the character is that she will go above and beyond and break some rules to get stuff done. Because I recall back to the first season when she tried to get access to her.
It was based on her basically covering up things and lying and being shady.
Exactly.
That's what she got. And I think that this show, as many problems as I have with it at times, that it's to show your rise and your fall of multiple different characters at the same time. So yes, I think the previous season, was her rise and she's at this position. This season, I feel, is going to be her downfall and everything catching up with her.
yeah, I do agree. I feel like a lot is going to catch up with her this season, and her back is going to be against the wall. But I do think that when she starts to feel that pressure and her back is against the wall, I think that is probably the point where she's going to call on the one person who will probably always be there for her, and that's Jamie. So I think she's going to, at some point during the season, I think she's going to ask him for help.
So in other words, you're saying that will lead to another passionate love scene between Jamie and Angela. That's what you're saying, Gary.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think Jamie's going to ever stick by this woman's side. It's like if you have, your main life that you're dealing with and you're trying to be clean, and then you have your side chick. You're going to choose your wife over the side chick.
Well, I mean,
in this case, I don't see
the wife is kind of acting up though. She's kind of doing her own thing a little bit.
The wife is justified with her acting up. I mean, let's be honest here. Jamie is not exactly husband type material. He can provide, but when it comes to faithfulness and making sure you're actually watching your kid, he's not exactly there. She's emotionally in need of some loving.
Well, I mean, like, if his wife is getting the coffee on the side, then, Jamie's going to want a cup of tea at least, so.
He can have tea and his little chai tea, but at the end of the day, he's going to stick with his water because at the end of the day, water is nutritious. We all have a little soda pop when we need some soda, but he's going to stick with his water.
Fair enough. I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, so getting to the witness, there was a scene where, the witness is talking to, the other people that Angela works with. I can't recall the names right now. I always forget that one guy's name. I think Mok is the, the Korean guy, and I can't remember the white guy's name. But yeah, the witness is talking to, some of Angela's colleagues, and she basically links Jamie to being Ghost because previously, there was some confusion and they thought maybe Tommy was Ghost, but she directly links Jamie because she saw him on screen, when he was on camera and everything, because of Tate. She saw him on screen and she linked him directly to being Ghost, and so now they have her testimony on that. And the question is, where is that going to lead us in this season? Is this going to be a potential downfall for Jamie, or, you know, what was going to happen there. So Dana, you said you had some thoughts on that. So what's your thoughts?
Because remember, they're going by voice thing, right? So for me, his voice can sound like anyone's. It's a regular, ordinary voice. This is not Barry White. So I do see there being some type of technicality issue, and that it's not gonna, you know, go. Maybe it's not even admissible, but I don't see this being a serious thing.
Really? I mean, because Jamie murdered her husband, right? And
Yes.
she was apparently there when it
Yeah.
happened.
Right.
So, like,
but you're by voice. So I can. You're sitting on the stand and you're saying, "I heard this voice." You was under distress. You was distracted. You didn't see what you saw. All you heard was a voice. How distinct was the voice? Is there a voice lineup? The man, for me, Jamie, does not have a voice where it's very distinguishable. It's very, oh gosh, I can't pronounce the word. It sticks out. To me, his voice can sound like anyone. Like I said before, it's not exactly like a Barry White. So I think that she can easily be cross-examined and be dismissed.
Remind me of something real quick. Was it the voice she recognized, or did she actually see him when the murder occurred?
It was just a voice.
Oh, okay.
Just a voice. If you're just hearing a voice and you're under distress, you haven't seen the person. To me, I don't see this being credible. Like, you can easily see it's not credible. For me.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I think there are like voice matches and stuff, like voice matching technology they can use and stuff like that. But you do have a point. There's probably some technicalities there that they can.
Why lie detectors are not admissible in court it's faulty. You can easily fake it. So I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that like you said, there probably is some kind of technicality they can get around there. But Richard, what's your thoughts on this witness?
So I understand the fact, as you both mentioned, that because it was such a traumatic event, and this is, of course, someone that she loved, was in a relationship with. I think in some instances, people they do remember aspects of that in of
but it's really good, and you're going to find multiple people in New York City who know at least English and Spanish, especially where the areas of where they're filming Power and the locations and stuff. Just to go to a supermarket, you're going to at least have to know basic Spanish. Then you also have the Arabs who work at the deli. So there's about 4 different cultures in literally one block. So you're going to pick up a little Spanish and a little bit of something else. You may not be able to sit and have a full-blown conversation, but you can have like a minimal basic understanding. So for me, I don't exactly see that being a big thing.
No comprende.
City is a hodgepodge of cultures and religions and races and languages.
One last thing I will add. We know that they covered them up so that they didn't see anything. We know when we saw them at the back of the club, at that point, yeah, they were already covered up. They didn't see anything, and then she heard her husband getting killed. But if they actually heard music or know of anything in that area, I mean, we don't know if.
Yeah, I finally see it play out, but yeah, something interesting to look out for. But so moving on, there's quite a few scenes where we see the trio together, Jamie, Tommy, and Kanan, and they're kind of working together again and building their chemistry. What I found funny was that there was a scene where Jamie asked, "Oh, how can I trust you, Kay?" But they've already been hanging out with this guy for like days now, and now he's still wondering like whether he can trust them. But yeah, but anyway, there's a scene that pops up where a boy visits Tommy and tells him about Callahan's murder and everything, and then the boy says that he thinks the nuke connected it, and obviously Tommy gets very upset about that, and then it makes him want to act on things. And then they actually go to a warehouse looking for Dre, and a shootout happens there. And Jamie actually ends up getting shot. And then later on, he goes to Proctor to help him get patched up, because they all get away from the shootout and everything. And Proctor helps, Jamie get patched up and everything like that after the shot. So yeah, what did you guys think about those early interactions with the trio, and their whole scheme to try and get Dre and everything like that? Just focusing on the early part of the episode, because there's more to talk about later. But how did you think the setup was of this whole story arc? Go to you first, Rich.
All right, so I have to say, again, I understand they are coming together for the conflict of taking down Dre, but I have to say, very, very sloppy outing. And Dre made them all look bad in this first episode, because that little shootout, I laughed through most to see that. But Tommy, Tommy tried to help him best he can. And then we see Kanan roll up and fire multiple shots, shooting at absolutely nothing because he didn't hit nobody. So I wasn't too impressed with that. Now, obviously, pretty sure they are into the. So it's, it is some conflict there, and I do believe that it's going to say all of that. But then,
yeah, for sure. It's definitely interesting, and I agree. Dre really did make them look bad, in throughout this episode actually. But like, to me, it's like throughout the whole of season 3 and 4, it seemed like Kanan could easily just pull up on Dre whenever he wanted and like boss him around and do whatever. And now it's like he's having trouble, like, just shooting at him and stuff like that. It's like it's completely switched, like he kind of had this command over Dre, and now it's like, Dre is just commanding everybody, like. And yeah, like it just seems kind of weird, the dynamics, because it's like we've seen Jamie, Tommy, and Kanan be dominant figures throughout, this entire show, and they've always been more ferocious than Dre. And now all of a sudden everything's flipped, and Dre is like the big bad guy, and he's kind of got one up on them at all points now of the show. So it's a bit funny to see that dynamic and how much it's flipped. But Dana, what's your thoughts on those early interactions between the trio, the Super Friends, and their desire to catch Dre?
Well, they're super friends because they're friends to the end. Best friends and super friends. No, God, Lord, that was corny. It was so corny. It was about as well coordinated as a DC movie, or as threatening as a Marvel villain before Thanos and Black Panther. It was just corny. As you were saying before, the shootout was ridiculous. Here you had, before in the previous season, he's all bossing Dre around. I remember I always did like Dre. I said that Dre was the one that's going to rise up and be like, the one who takes over things. But I did not anticipate it was going to be this corny. And it made no sense. All of a sudden, you go from like bossing him around and like, I'm the top dog and big man. And like all of a sudden you're like in you can't shoot and you're scared and you're carrying. And the fact that, we'll talk about it later, but there's a card incident with the card and everyone's like, oh my God, it's a card. And everyone's all afraid of a card. It was just awful. He was just randomly shooting in the air, wasn't hitting anything. You know what 50 Cent reminded me of in this episode? Remember in Iron Man 3, when all of a sudden Iron Man started getting PTSD and panic attacks and anxiety? That's what 50 Cent was. It was just so corny. Other than that, if you take away the corn factor and the fact that I didn't like the fact that all of a sudden they're all like best friends now and they're sitting in the car and they're driving and, they're going through the warehouse and they're all buddies and, helping drag, Jamie out like all together, and the whole situation with Proctor. Oh God, the fact is that I don't see why all of a sudden they're afraid of Dre. If I would have just had that explanation, then I would have been all for it. But again, I do like the fact that Dre is, kind of like this threat. And I said that he should be a threat, but not this cornerly. That is the issue that I have. So I hated it and I liked it, but I hated it again. I thought it was extremely not well coordinated. And they could have worked on that scene a little bit more. I don't like the fact that all of a sudden they're besties. If you're going to come together for a common goal, I don't have a problem with that. But don't sit up in the car and in the warehouse and start having conversations like you've been, buddy for the past 40 years and you've raised your children together and, you're gone through drama and women issues. That's the problem that I had. So I felt that it was very forced. I said this about the last season. I felt that everything was just forced. I think that the whole Dre threat situation was rushed. They should have taken a little bit of time to just flesh that out because it was for me, it was very jarring and it came off as being very corny and it wasn't well executed. But I appreciate what they was trying to do, if that makes any sense. It just wasn't well executed. And therefore, I couldn't really get into it and I couldn't take it seriously. Even if like 50 Cent or Jamie or even Tommy had some type of attitude, like I'm not even going to talk to him or give him like some type of side eye, or you felt that I didn't feel any tension between the three. You can come together for a common goal, but let me still feel that underlying tension. Because remember, you had previously where Kanan and Ghost and everybody was trying to kill each other. So it just really didn't make it was just weird. And I felt like they just threw out the history and the tension that they had before. And just all of a sudden, we love you, we're best friends, let's go have pizza and hang out and get our nails done.
Ouch. Okay. There was this one scene where Kanan was trying to ask Tommy about Tariq, and we're going to talk a lot about Tariq later on because there's a few things that he does, but there was that scene where Kanan is asking about Tariq and whether he was scared at the crime scene and stuff, and it seems like Jamie and Tommy hasn't even told Kanan that it was Tariq that killed Ray Ray and stuff. So he still kind of cares for Tariq, it seems, but it seems like Tommy and Jamie don't want Kanan to be anywhere near Tariq or to even be asking about him, because Tommy was pretty aggressive in that scene with regards to Kanan bringing him up and stuff. So do you think that might be something that comes to play with that that friendship dynamic later on, because Kanan still obviously cares about Tariq, but they know that he kind of kidnapped Tariq before, so they don't want him to be anywhere near Tariq at this point, even if they are working with him. So do you think that might be something that kind of causes a bit of friction in their friendship later on? What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I definitely think there is still going to be some tension. That's a very good reason, because I do remember that scene specifically. There is still going to be some tension later, because they obviously their goal right now is to take down Dre, but again,
operating as a team and everything, because there was even that one scene where they're in the car and they're talking about Tommy, like they're joking about him and how he introduced them to some white guy or racist or something, and that person used the N-word, and then Tommy didn't know whether to beat the guy up or join in or whatever, and they had a little joke, a little fun moment about that. So it's like I think they do kind of want to show us what their chemistry used to be, but this scene like the one we just described where Kanan is asking about Tariq, I think little scenes like that is when they're still trying to show that there is some tension there as well. But Dana, what's your thoughts on that scene where Kanan asks about Tariq, and do you think that is going to be a factor in their friendship later on?
Here's the thing. I don't have a problem with them being friends in the past. I want them to explore that relationship of what caused them to break up. What was the friction? We never got that. I don't have a problem with that. My problem is they made them super friends. Be friends, not super friends. So that was my issue. It became too corny. My thing is, Tommy is crazy, and we've seen Tommy be crazy. So I'm waiting for him to snap and to, go off. The problem is this. We have, oh God, the name just Kanan, having some type of feelings and care for Tariq. All right? Weird, but okay, fine. So you have him, I can see him either sticking up for Jamie, and that maybe that relationship, they end up being friends and something ends up happening to Tommy. I don't know, but the fact, I just didn't, I was frustrated by this scene. And I felt that because they made them these best friends all of a sudden again too quickly, that it's gonna end up being really weird when I think there's going to be some type of cross between the three. They're going to break up again and they're going to be enemies again. But the fact is that for me, yeah, there was that little tiny scene of like the tension thing, and maybe they harped on that just a little bit so it can tease you for the next episode or what's going down by the line. But the way how they just executed them being super friends so quickly, that I don't think that them ended up crossing each other is going to be well thought out type of thing. So I just don't know. I don't know. I do see that, the show is going to have them break up and it's going to be over Tariq. But I think that it's going to be something to do with Tommy snapping, because that's just how Tommy is. And I do see that maybe Jamie and Kanan might, I don't know, through some weird bond thing, and then the whole thing with the son. I don't know. It's all over the place with me. I just don't know.
Yeah, there are a lot of different possibilities, I guess, of where they could go. But yeah, it's interesting.
Plausible one would be for Tommy to go off. That would be the most plausible.
What, go off on his own?
No, for him to either go off on his own or to him to go off on Kanan.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think that's a possibility.
Because Tommy is crazy, and I do see that happening. But for this episode, they made everyone too soft. So I just don't know.
Yeah.
It was really weird. In fact, 50 Cent still cares for the other guy's son, and he, it's weird because it can go. Here's the thing. It's weird because I don't see Kanan like sacrificing his life or anything for Tariq. That I just don't see happening. But I do see him having some type of care for his son. But I do see I can't really break it down because it's just too weird and corny. I just don't know. I'm going to just say that. I don't know what's going to happen with them because it's just how it was executed in the scene.
Yeah, there's like too many different threads to pull on for this. There's so many things that could happen at this point. So I guess we just gotta wait and see what direction.
It's for me to figure out what the heck is gonna happen going on at the same time. Too many storylines.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, speaking of other storylines going on, there's this really random scene where Angela pops up at Proctor's place. And she offers her help to him because he's going through a case with Mock, the Korean guy. And yeah, she basically shows up wanting to help him out. So do you think that this is foreshadowing a possible union between the two, whether professional or more later on? Go ahead, Rich. What do you think?
Wait a second. What do you mean or more, Gary? Are you?
It's possible. I think they were talking to each other in Spanish and stuff, so I don't know. I think anything is possible at this point.
Yeah.
We'll
see.
What do you think that scene was about, though? Angela wanting to help him and stuff like that.
I honestly think that like I mentioned when we started the show, this is going to be a season about slowly unraveling every character on, because again, this is a loose end that needed to be tied up, you know. And while I hate to say it, you know, Tommy and Ghost, at some point or another, they with Angela. There's a lot.
He is a very powerful character just because he knows so much about Tommy and Jamie. And I do think that, you know, wherever this show goes and whatever the end is, I think he's going to have a lot to do with whatever happens. So there is definitely a lot riding on that character. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him die at some point because of that, like you said. But yeah, Dana, what's your thoughts on Angela visiting Proctor? And do you think that that's leading anywhere? You're muted, by the way. Or is she even there?
I think that means she don't care about Proctor.
I guess so.
Ouch.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting to see. Angela, like we said before, she has a lot of pressure on her this season. She's got internal affairs on her case, and it seems like her co-workers kind of want to get her out. So she kind of does need allies. So I think it's probably a little smart of her to kind of, you know, get as many professional allies as she can. At this point, she probably doesn't want anything to do with Jamie. I think that might change later on. But at this point in time, you know, I think she just wants people to align herself with that can kind of help her out, you know, here and there. Especially when, you know, she's kind of taking it upon herself to bury evidence and things of that nature. So, yeah, and that's something else. Let's get into that too. So, there's a couple scenes throughout the episode where, you know, we see Angela. There was one scene where she brings up the record on the computer. She decides not to delete it at that point, and then the internal affairs investigator comes in and asks her, you know, why she was at the crime scene, you know, Ray Ray's crime scene and stuff like that. And, you know, basically wanting an alibi of what she was doing and everything like that. And then later on in the episode, she actually does delete the file, you know, after a few back and forth conversations with Tasha. So she deletes the file. So do you think that's going to come back and bite her in the butt? Rich, what do you think?
Oh, I 100% think that's going to come back. And again, you know, just as a play up to that particular event, you know, she had the conversation with Tasha, and Tasha told her that Tariq, you know, yeah, Tariq shot him. They shot Ray Ray. So she was a little taken aback with the fact.
And it seems like they want to dig up some dirt on her. So she's in a very vulnerable state. But Dana, are you back yet? You're muted if you're talking. I don't know.
I think when you mentioned Angela, she said, "Oh, that's it. I can't."
They would have spent so much time on that, you know, if they wasn't going to come back to it. So I think that's definitely going to come back. They're probably going to trace it to her computer and her login session or something like that, you know.
Oh yeah,
that's going to come back later on for sure. So yeah, I guess let's get into some of the more important things that happen in the episode. So after the failed attempt to, you know, get Dre earlier in the episode, they kind of start to orchestrate another assassination, you know, on Dre and everything, and they want to do it during the funeral. Now, to set this up, you know, they have kind of a briefing where they discuss what the strategy is going to be. Kanan said he's going to get some of his guys. Tommy suggests that they should get some of the Italians because Dre probably won't see, you know, he won't think that white guys are coming to kill him and stuff like that. So and he literally says something like that, which is funny. But yeah, so he suggests that he's going to get some of the Italians. Of course, we know that, you know, he knows who his father is. He's established a relationship with his father now. And, you know, he's got some Italians to call on if he needs to. So he visits them and, you know, he meets one of the other guys in the mafia. And typical Tommy, you know, he disobeys something that, you know, I forgot that guy's name, his dad's friend or whatever.
Vincent.
Vincent.
No,
Yeah.
oh no, not Vincent. It's the other. Vincent is the guy who is in charge of, that is very good friends with his father.
Dad is friends with, he, because outside Tommy sees some other Italians, like some young guys, and he hears that, they've got a very good reputation when it comes to doing dirt and everything, but his father's friend tells him not to speak to them and not to, arrange anything with them and not to tie them into any business or anything like that, because everything they do goes through Vincent. But typical Tommy, he disregards this. And after he meets with Vincent, he goes straight to those young guys and he asks them to help him in the assassination attempt on Dre's life. And, he offers them a sum of money to do it and everything. And I guess they agree. And then, later on in the episode, there's the whole funeral scene, and a lot happens within that scene itself. There's some interesting points there, like when Tate makes Tommy sit behind the front row, like, because Tommy's like a brother to Jamie. He's like family, basically. So they wanted him in the front row. But Tate is like, nah, we can't have this white guy in the front row. It's gonna paint a picture to the viewers, of, people watching this. And he basically doesn't want Tommy, and Tommy he doesn't want to cause any conflict at the funeral, so he's respectful and he agrees to sit in the row behind. And then there's a point during the funeral service where Tommy leans over and whispers to Jamie and tells him that everybody's in position, the Italians are in position, and they can see Dre, and they're ready to pursue the assassination and everything. But Tariq hears that, and Tariq is meant to go up and speak, but he acts like he's crying, and then he runs off to the bathroom and he texts Dre to warn him. And Dre manages to get away. He also manages to shoot one of the Italians that Tommy had, go to the thing and everything. So yeah, a lot of stuff happens there with that second attempt on Dre's life. And there's a lot to unpack there. So let's get straight into everything. Dana, are you back? You're muted. I guess she's having technical difficulties, but Rich, what's your thoughts on, the setup of this second attempt on Dre's life? Was it sloppy, and, will the mistakes that Tommy made come back to haunt him in terms of, the Italians and everything like that?
So let me just give a disclaimer before I get to answer those two questions. I like the very least taken him out a certain type of way and been successful, but because he got the warning from Tariq, that these are people that only work with Vincent. He basically went over Vincent to this drug stuff. So if Tommy has issues with the drug shipment, the fact that he has all these issues with Dre and the Jimenez, that means he will not be able to deliver that 75% promise that he made. So I feel like he is setting himself up for all kinds of trouble. And now, like I said, that Ray
this boy's sister died and he's still acting up. Like, I don't get it. And Dre has a lot to do with, his sister dying in the first place. I mean, it's not just Dre, like everyone kind of did something wrong that led to it. But yeah, like, Dre has endangered his life and, everyone else's. So it's like, why are you helping him at this point?
Exactly. One quick thing I want to say real quick too, because later, and they work behavior.
Yeah, that was a very that wasn't an easy to watch scene when Jamie was kind of grilling Tariq and everything, and like shouting at him, yelling, because obviously you're thinking that that's only going to make Tariq more distant with his father. It's going to create a worse relationship. And there's a scene later on where they're carrying the casket, Raina's casket, and Jamie kind of gives Tariq a nod and everything, but the nod that Tariq gives back, it's not like it's not one that says, yeah, we're on the same page. You know, it's one that's where he's like, whatever, I'm just going along with this for now, and then I'm going to screw you over later. So I think this is definitely something that's going to be reoccurring throughout the season, and I think it's definitely going to lead to Tariq being on the other side, you know, of Jamie's agenda. I think so. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I still think he needs a whooping. You know, Tariq needs a whooping, but yeah. Dana, are you back yet?
I'm here. I'm sorry. Technology just all died. The scene was that it was it was odd. It was all for the scene, and I was feeling it, and then I was really confused by Tariq going off and calling, basically texting to warn Dre about what was happening, and even saying that whole nod situation. I interpreted it as something. I interpret it as, "Are you okay?" In the sense that you just lost your sister. Are you okay? Him giving that nod, and then it was weird because you could also interpret it as maybe some type of other setup. So I just didn't understand what the heck was what they was trying to accomplish with that. But I just want Tariq needs a good beating, and we said that before. Just a real good old fashioned, parental beating. There's a lot of open questions that they these questions they left open because from this one scene alone. I don't exactly know the direction that they're trying to go. Maybe maybe it's going to be Dre set up by Tariq. So maybe he's playing that best friend role, and I got you out of the jam, then I saved your life initially, so he can be the one who takes out Dre. So we could be looking at this all wrong. Maybe Tariq has a motive. Maybe through that whole nod situation that we saw with him give his father, maybe that was something that they both came up with. Maybe that was the plan all along. Because that nod, for me, it was one of those really weird, suspicious nods. Like, did you do it? You got it? You good? And we all know that "you good" is interpreted in a lot of different ways. And the way how I interpret it is that, they're setting up Dre. So maybe he knew that they're not going to catch him this time. Maybe the whole thing is so that Tariq can get the revenge. So that's how I view it. If that's the case, then they were really smart by doing this. If that's not the case, then I'm really confused and I did not like the writing.
I don't know about that. I think the nod was more like because Tariq ran off crying. Apparently, he was crying, but
he was crying to his mother. He knew what he had to do. He's not going to sit and text him in the middle of the funeral. Draw attention. People like to look at you and your phone and what you're doing. He's not going to do that. So him running off, and remember, they were cameras. Remember, the funeral was televised. Yeah. So him being so distraught, they got the people on their side. They got the people on their side, and then he's trying to cover it up, and him running to the bathroom, and I believe the mother was at the door. Are you all right? Are you all right? So she's feeling emotional, and it was all this really great setup and this really great acting thing, so that they can basically cross Dre. That's how I view it.
I don't think Jamie was in on that. I think it's just he was nodding because he was seeing if Tariq was all right, if he was good and everything, just being proud that he's there to carry the casket also, I think that's what his nod was about.
Okay.
But you could be onto something too. There could be some underlying plot like unfolding before our eyes as well. But I don't know. Like you said earlier, there's many ways this can go. So we have to wait and see. But Tariq is definitely going to play a big part in this season for sure. But yeah, what did you think about how they set up this assassination attempt on Dre? Because the whole Tommy, he went to see the Italians, he met Vincent, and then he saw those hitmen outside. and he tried to hire them, and they specifically said that everything they do goes through Vincent, but he still offered them a sum of money anyway to try and hit Dre. And then Dre ended up shooting one of them, and it looks like he might be dead or whatever. So like that's definitely gonna come back to haunt Tommy. So what was your thoughts on the whole setup of them trying to get Dre and everything, and Tommy's mess up?
I think that it was corny and it was kind of really sloppy, but I think again I'm going with the fact that it was intentional. I think that this was intentionally how it was supposed to go down, so that it looks like some type of sloppy thing, so that they can get Dre and double cross him. I mean, the man came out and they tried to kidnap him, and he's gonna, Tariq at the end is gonna look like some type of hero. And the guy that they did shoot and kill was expendable. It wasn't Tommy and it wasn't Kanan. So I think that I don't really.
What about Vincent? Like this guy Vincent, he's a big player when it comes to the Italians, and he's got a strong relationship with Tommy's father. So
Yeah.
for Tommy to cross him, that looks very bad on him, and that can have ramifications on him.
It can. Maybe that was the hiccup in the thing, how it was originally supposed to go down. That was the hiccup thing. And I do think that Tommy is going to end up paying for it later or snapping. But I do see it as it being a hiccup in the plan. It wasn't supposed to go that way. Tommy, again, is very brash, and he doesn't really think things out thoroughly. So I do see that that's going to end up coming back later on and being a part of like a big plot line in the rest of the season.
Yeah. Interesting theories there. So moving on to like the end of the show and everything, we get that scene with which I thought it was a great scene, to be honest, where Dre survived, and Jamie is at Raina's grave, and then there are multiple scenes here. We see Tommy getting a card when he gets home and finds a card on his door, and Kanan is coming out of the strip club or wherever he was at, and he finds a card on his car, and then Dre, he actually walks up to Jamie at the grave. He pulls up to him while he's at the grave, and he's like, "Yeah, I know you ain't strapped at your daughter's funeral or whatever." Like, it was a very gangster moment for Dre, I think. Like, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys better not, you better calm this down, and you better stop trying to get at me, because I got the cartel behind me and everything, and I run shit now." Basically giving him the talk, telling him to back off and everything. And then he puts the card inside Jamie's pocket. So what did you guys think of that scene, and where does that leave the relationship between Jamie and Dre and everyone else in that situation? Like, where does this leave things, and how is this going to set up what happens next? What do you think, Dana? And what did you think of the scene as well?
Well, the scene as well, I thought it was really unoriginal, because we've seen that played out so many different times. It was so corny. But I did say previously that I did want, Dre to be the one who's the gets his come up and, is the leader of basically the whole situation. But just the way, again, how it was executed was like this ominous Godfather thing where they had the music. Remember, they had the music playing, and then they had the cards, and everyone was seeing what their cards was, and they had that look of like dread on their face. And the fact that he visited the gravesite was like that whole "I have an offer you can't refuse" type of situation. I just thought it was really corny. But at the same time, I think that it's, again, I'm still going to go and say this, that this is some way where Dre thinks that he holds all the cards and that him and Tariq are really cool, and that they're going to end up, doing this switch on him and setting him up for something, or, having Tariq kill him. But again, I'm going to let him have his moment. and say that, you know, he wanted to be like the big boy of the group, and he thinks that he can basically threaten everyone. Because remember, he not only just threatened them, he said, you know, I have a card and this was for your whole family. And remember how it went to 50 Cent? And he's like, I've only seen this in jail, and you would be afraid if you saw this card. Remember that whole scene that played out? So it was corny, but I think that they're letting Dre have his moment.
Cool. And what about you, Reg? What did you think of that final scene?
Well, I will say that I understand why Dana said because a bit deeper, because I remember.
Yeah, I think a lot can happen between their friendship as well. You know, Dre and Cristobal, I could see that turning sour eventually as well, and that, you know, would put Dre in a vulnerable state. And also, doesn't I'm trying to remember, was it Jamie or was it Tommy who met with the Jimenez before? Because I'm sure one of them, or maybe both of them, have met with the Jimenez, and they kind of had some sort of relationship established with them before from prior dealings or something.
Yeah, they both did. They believe they asked
some back dealing that can go on there to turn things around on Dre. But ultimately, I think this entire episode was designed to set up Dre's character for this season and make him seem untouchable and make him seem like he has all the power. And like you guys mentioned, there were some questionable points throughout the episode. I think most of my, questionable things come from, you know, the friendship between Jamie, Tommy, and Kanan, just because it's a bit too forced for me. Like they're not supposed to be that friendly with each other or that tight after everything they've been through last season. But besides that, I think they did a great job setting up Dre to be the man in power at the moment. And I think that final scene was a nice touch. I think it was essential that he showed up at the gravesite because, you know, he knew that Jamie probably wasn't going to be strapped and he wasn't going to be violent or aggressive there because, you know, it's a respectful place. If he would have showed up at his home, then, you know, anything could have happened because, you know, Jamie probably would have had his gun on him at that point. So yeah, I think that was a great scene, personally.
Yeah,
and
yeah. Well, yeah, I think you had to have a scene
and the super friends and the corniness and I want to be a gangster thing. I thought that they did a pretty decent job. So I liked this episode. I thought it was very entertaining. I like how they blended it with the music. I like how they made it very like this atmospheric thing, even though there were elements where it was just ridiculous. But I did like it.
Yeah, it was definitely a good premiere. Interested to hear more thoughts on it. I do also. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I will say that not at one point did it drag. I didn't think it dragged. I think that they introduced who they needed to introduce. They made, you know, the storylines of what they needed to do. And yes, they did leave parts very open-ended, but this is the premiere episode, so it's supposed to be open-ended. So I do applaud them for that.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to give them props for the song selection because that song they played at the end with the Dre scene, that was like one of the hardest hip hop songs I've heard in a while.
Jadakiss.
Yeah, that was episode 1 of Power season 5, and that's our thoughts, our recap. We definitely want to know, you know, what you guys think out there. So definitely leave some of your comments below. Let us know what you think, any theories you have, and what you think might happen next. And we'll definitely be back again next week to recap next week's episode. So be on the lookout for that. And we are on iTunes as well, so you can look us up there and subscribe, and you know, you can get the episodes there as well if you just want to listen. And also check out the koalition.com. That's Koalition spelt with a K. So definitely check out the website. We have a lot of other entertainment posts and video game posts and everything like that. So check out the website too. But for now, we'll see you next week. Peace out.
Peace out.